Thank you for your time. My name is Betula, and this is Shooting from the Hip. So on this week's episode, we'll be covering Pavlov's dog. And to be fair to Pavlov, I'm going to read something briefly to you, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. So Ivan Petrovich Pavlov is Russian, and he was born the 26th of September 1849, and he died the 27th of February 1936. Was a Russian Soviet experimental neurologist, psychologist, and physiologist, known for his discovery of classical conditioning through his experiments with dogs. What is Pavlov's dog theory? Classical conditioning is learning through association and was first demonstrated by Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov showed that dogs could be conditioned to salivate at the sound of a bell if that sound was repeatedly presented at the same time that they were given food. So classical conditioning, also known as Pavlovian or respondent conditioning, is a behavioral procedure in which a biologically potent stimulus, like food, is paired with a previously neutral stimulus, like the ringing of a bell. It also refers to the learning process that results from this pairing, through which the neural stimulation comes to elicit a response, salivation that is usually similar to the one elicited by the potent stimuli. All right. Classical conditioning is distinct from operant conditioning, which is also called instrumental conditioning, through which the strength of a voluntary behavior is modified by reinforcement or punishment. However, classical conditioning can affect operant conditioning in various ways. Notably, classical conditioning stimuli may serve to reinforce operant responses. Okay, so that's a really super long-winded way. Hey, hey Slim, how you doing? Sorry, good. Sorry, so that was super long-winded way to basically saying that there's two ways to condition people. Right, so because it works, or a biological organism. So in this case, Pavlov demonstrated it with dogs, but it's the same thing that goes on with human beings. The operant conditioning, think of it as the way that you're brought up in your family household and the things you learn to do and not to do. Those are done through through its behavior that's modified and reinforced through punishment or reward, right? So everybody gets trained like that, right? From when you're an infant until you reach your independent years, right? So that's how we condition certain behaviors in people. So what Pavlov did was he illustrated it in a really, I think it was like, it's kind of like this time-proven kind of example of how you can condition behaviors and biological responses in individuals through the stimulation that you create some kind of a psychological association with, and then it has an effect on the biology. So does that make it any easier to understand than everything I just finished reading about Pavlov's dog?
I preferred the reading. Like that's just
up yours, buddy.
That's just because I was curious about how it would be presented. Because one thing I'm interested in is, are these things stackable too?
Well, think about it. The entire duration of a lifetime, it's something that's ongoing throughout the course of your life, right? And you dictate to some degree how that happens. Like you can reward yourself and you punish yourself for things that you do or don't do, right? And usually it's psychological. So when you're rewarding, you're usually feeling exuberant, expressing it, like you take yourself out for food or something like that. A material reward for doing good, and then when you do something that only after the consequences of what you've done, you realize that maybe it was not good and stuff like that. You torture yourself psychologically, right? And so then, because it's a subjective view, it feeds into that stimulus-independent thought, which we already covered in another episode. It's all self-referential, and then you go through this thing where you torture yourself. Why do you do this? Like asking questions without, and that that you can't get a definitive answer for. So you just end up sort of punishing yourself. And then you try to rectify that behavior by either, you offer up something like as in terms of a way to sort of like an easement for like, here, I'm, as an apology for what you've done, or hopefully an apology is enough to manage the consequences. But this idea of influencing your behavior, think about that magical device you carry around with you everywhere you go, right? Your phone, right? For all of you, your cell phone is no longer just a phone, right? It's they evolved into personal computers, and now there's essentially nothing that you can't do from the device. The device itself becomes like your ability to do virtually anything, right? So having said that, so when you think about how it may be influencing your behavior, every time you get a notice and you get that chime or something goes off, right? Like it traditionally used to be just a ring for a phone, and then you would go, oh, somebody's trying to call me, and either you would ignore it or you'd answer the phone. Now you're constantly bombarded by anything that's, say, with it, for example, that you're entirely tied into your social media. Anytime that something goes on that's noteworthy, or now some kind of a external kind of stimuli, a potent stimuli, so like it'd be like the equivalent of ringing the bell when the dogs are eating. It goes off regardless of what you're doing, and it draws your attention away from whatever you were currently doing. So what do you think that's doing? Shortening your attention span, right? And it feeds into that subjective side of yourself, right? Because it's always distracting you, taking you away from whatever you're presently doing, right? So then you only start to view the world as you interpret it. And then it feeds into that interpretation, because now you follow up on whatever it was that got your attention, the distraction from social media. Now it'll be someone's comment, or it'll be a like, or a whole host of things. And then, so now you're completely tied into that. So what it's training you to be is distracted. And so now you can't be present. So then it makes you more prone to being impulsive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like if you have more Instagram likes, that's more that's a lot more interesting to somebody than somebody getting no Instagram likes, but they enjoy their day. Like, subjectively speaking, you can argue that having this really efficient device in your pocket that lets you communicate, lets you research, lets you like do like a vast amount of things, that's making us more short-term interested. But like,
no, what it's really doing is it's making you distracted. So even though this thing that you carry around with you is fascinating, and it's fascinating because it's a multifunctional tool. It doesn't do one thing; it does everything. And because of how connected you become, now you're kind of enslaved by it, right? And it's not a euphemism to use that language. That somehow now that you're accountable to this non-conscious thing that's tied to your hip in a manner of speaking, that it now commands your attention, when what you should be doing is just being present in your attention. But so remember what we said about subjectivity and objectivity. If you're not training to be objective, you're training to be subjective, and it minimizes your ability to be objective and only makes you self-interested. Kind of makes you kind of curious, eh? It makes you kind of wonder why suddenly you've had an entire generation of people who are only too happy to demonstrate their own self-interest. Now, and it's not a slight. Think about it. The coincidence of those behaviors, and this device attached to people. Because remember, 20 years ago, it was still just a phone. It's a recent development that it's become a movie camera, a photo, a still shot camera, a library card, essentially gaining you access to virtually any kind of information you can imagine, and connectivity with everybody within your network. And you can create a fictitious network beyond the limits of your localized network. So the localized network would be like your family and your immediate friends and stuff like that. You can create a much more extended network. Is that bad? No. Right? But you can see where the potential problems then come, right? Because now, instead of having people who are patient and present, you have people who are impatient, reactive, and so impatience and reactivity kind of breed intolerance, right? Because you can now, from the safety of anywhere that you are, you can lash out at anyone or say anything you want. I mean, even the fact that we're doing this, right? How many people do you think will watch this on a phone versus like a desktop? And remember, I haven't had a cell phone since 2004, and it's something now it's become a sticking point. Now it's a point of pride. I absolutely will not get one. I'll never have one.
Some people that have their phones on all the time and they have these daily messages from like 2, 1, or 5 friends, the value of the communication could be very important to them, and maybe they put all this effort into thinking about what they're saying, but there's so many people my age that have their phones on all the time. They're always on Instagram, TikTok, like any social media platform. Since they're more connected, the effort it takes to get out of their way to go and communicate with somebody is so much more easy that it feels like they almost, or I at least go through this process where it's like, I'll message somebody, they'll say, hey, I'm good, how about you? Like even short form HBU.
Right.
It's all about this efficiency of communication, but the value of the communication seems to...
Because it's kind of lackluster. It's missing out on quality, right? Which is something that you typically get when you're interacting face to face, right? Now, having said all that, like the advantages of mobile devices is clear, okay? Like and how much it's required now to be able to function in society. Again, can't be ignored. But what we do ignore is the consequences of how it's influencing the way we behave. So then, are we just all dogs in Pavlov's experiment? Or rather, anybody that lives by their phone? It's a fair question, and it's a question, to be clear, it's a question that only you, the individual, can answer. Right? But I'll bet you, if you're listening to this for the first time, it's a question you never even thought to consider. That you never ever paused long enough to go, hey, could this thing be having potentially a negative effect on me? And not in a weird way like that it's like frying your brain and stuff, which it very well could be. But I mean in the way that it's conditioning the way that you behave.
Yeah, like we don't see ourselves as cyborgs because we don't implant our technology into ourselves. But we have a pocket, and then there's like this high-powered computer always there.
So then, in a manner of speaking, maybe not in the classical science fiction kind of definition, we are cyborgs. There are some people who would make the argument if you wear glasses that you're a cyborg. It's an enhancement, right, to make an adjustment for a deficiency, right? So
it's complicated, like
right,
making the lenses even.
Right. So then you're using technology to enhance or augment the individual. Isn't that the classic definition of a cyborg? So then essentially maybe we're all cyborgs. I need them to read, right? So which I don't need them right now.
No, but that makes sense because like I have to go down the street to a grocery store to get like chicken, vegetables, whatever. Like that's implicit, or that's dependent on this pre-existing technological infrastructure, like the farms, this and that. Like it's hard to draw definitions, but it's like, are we cyborgs? Are we humans?
Well, okay. So I mean, it's okay. So it's fair to say that there's elements of everything in there, that you're not exclusively one thing or another, right? And it's because of the exquisite nature of living in a society that like a lot of the things that we require, those requirements are met by the way we organize. And then all you need to do is have a medium of exchange to exchange for goods and for services. And so then the things that you can't do are provided by those who can do it, right? Now, having said all that, Again, is all that stuff contributing to your behaviors? And the honest answer is yes. The honest answer is yes. But a nuanced answer is it's kind of different from individual to individual,
Yeah.
right? So how much it impacts the individual, and how much of an influence it is on their behaviors and informs those behaviors, that varies from person to person, and again, the type of influences. Because remember, it's not just your phone, right? So the familial structure, your nationality, the culture, all these things are influencing and informing your behavior, right? And what's are you familiar with the old expression, birds of a feather flock together? Right. Okay. So if you gravitate towards a certain type of group and then you associate within that certain type of group, it does. Guess what? It's going to influence and inform your behavior and your outlook. So again, it does feed into how you subjectively interpret the world around you. Because again, this Pavlov's dog, this whole idea does feature heavily in subjectivity and objectivity and what they are and stuff. Because it's directly linked to those things. So having said that, is it kind of clear? Are you kind of lost? Are you feeling it? Or
No, it makes sense. Like we're all bombarded by stimuli, like throughout our day for our entire lives that can condition us.
sure.
At some point, we look at like who we are as individuals. We might group ourselves into certain areas, but
Okay, so then how you identify as who you are, is that really who you are? Because remember, all these things are impacting how you see yourself. So it's creating an intellectual construct or a thought construct where you start to, this is what you think that you are. And it may not even be accurate. It doesn't have to be accurate.
yeah, it's just a thought.
It's just right. But if that's how you see yourself, then here's the question: is it really you?
That brings up another question. Like, how do you define you? Like, it gets to
Okay, so again, that's a multifaceted definition, right?
Right.
There's no one clear definition.
Yeah, I was thinking about this because I watched the one video you recorded about actualization,
Okay.
and I thought that was very interesting because it's almost like regardless of your conditioning within the moment, you define what you are by what you're doing. So
Yes. So if you want to, okay. So self-actualization.
sorry if I'm
Oh
overcomplicating
no.
this.
It's okay. Like because it does relate. So self-actualization is the ability to is to realize the entirety of your own potential by kind of bypassing all this conditioning. But you can only bypass the conditioning by being objective, and then you don't go, okay, so now I'm self-actualized. It doesn't work like that. And then, so then what you do is you invest in all this training, not so that you don't become conditioned. So you're conditioning yourself to become unconditioned, right? So again, this does dovetail into breath work and meditation because those becomes the methods by which you're able to actualize yourself more completely. So part of the self-actualization is the investment in creating skills, realizing those skills, which is the result of training, and training the mind and the nervous system to be present in the current moment. And then as a result of all this effort, it produces self-actualization. But it's not like this, it's not like a goal to be achieved as much as something is to be realized. So another way of saying that through the training, you all the potential that you have, you turn it into something real. So like a real skill, an ability, all that stuff is a result of again, the way you're conditioned. Right? So conditioning, so now it becomes even deeper. Now you go, like, so conditioning in and of itself is not the problem. It's the perspective or the way the conditioning, the alignment of the conditioning. Right? So if it produces self-interested, impulsive, short-sightedness, self-interest, then it would be fair to characterize it as being bad. But if it awakens all these hidden potential abilities that you have, and by awakening I mean that you train them to become real world skills, then conditioning becomes a positive thing. So now you can look at conditioning as like a very potentially as a double-edged sword, so that as much as it can work for you to cut things, you can cut yourself on it as well. So, and again, it's the kind of thing that most people never pause to consider. Remember, this is something that, you know, should have been that we should have been exploring when we were younger, much younger. I think people who are probably like, you know, 10, 12 years old, you could introduce these ideas to them, and that it wouldn't be beyond their ability to make the connections and to even to understand this. And the real shame is, for most people, if they ever think about this stuff, it's only much later in life when it's kind of brought to their attention in an unexpected way, right?
Usually not in a positive light.
Right. It's a result of like this, you know, like they, you know,
self-tormenting.
Right. So I go like this again. I'm gonna ask the question, like, how do you want to live? Is that really how you want to live?
Right. If you want to avoid being conditioned to being something you believe is not good, the first thing you have to do is condition yourself along the lines that like has integrity. Like if you can condition yourself to be a certain thing, that's what you've actualized. You can't be those other things because you are this thing. Like if I'm impulsive and that's what I like to be, I condition myself to be more impulsive, but that comes at the cost of being patient.
Right. And having said that, if that's your leaning, if you're leaning towards subjectivity, you become better at it. Like biologically, you become more efficient. Psychologically, you become more efficient at it. You strengthen pathways that support it, and then it becomes harder to break with. So then you can see where like, so a negative conditioning can produce like very negative psychological and biological effects too, right? So like this is not something to be taken lightly. Like you can sacrifice an individual as a result of this.
To make it sound extreme, people can be addicted to their own behaviors even if it's not narcotics or like.
It's not extreme. That's entirely accurate. People become addicted to patterns of behavior. We're creatures of habit
And comfort.
Right. And so you'll gravitate towards those things. If you're asking and I'm telling, you should seek discomfort always. You should never favor comfort except when you're sleeping, like when you're about to get rest. But the entire time you're awake, you should be seeking things that are challenging and engaging and that force you to kind of think about everything that you're doing and to reconsider your position, to reconsider who you are. Right? Because who are you then at the end of the day? Are you exclusively this thing this conditioned thing? A programmed, an organic robot? Or are you something that you could potentially unleash a limitless capacity in? But again, the tool, the mechanism is conditioning, which is another way for saying training, or right? So that's what you do. So you can have the kind of training that elicits the very best or the very worst in you.
I think it's like the classical word like for a robot, like robotica. It means something along the lines of like
slave. I think
yeah.
Isn't it something to that effect? So
yeah,
like servant, right? Like
yeah, we're not robots. We're self-programming.
But we can also be. We are self-programmed, but we can also be programmed externally.
Yes.
From external influences.
We're like open source.
If you want to use that language, but it would be accurate. It would be accurate to say that. So then I'm like, if any of this is true, then why wouldn't you actively pursue then training or conditioning that would draw out the most favorable aspects of who you are, that would make you I hate to use this because it's become this cliche for self-help, but the best version of you. I personally like this to refer as the highest expression of yourself, and that it's an evolving state. So that means that you're in a constant state of revolution. You're supposed to. You're supposed to always be learning and always moving forward. And remember, with every challenge that you overcome, then you find another challenge, and then by seeking out more challenge, you broaden, or you're able to take on greater and greater challenges. So you do it incrementally. Start with a small challenge, and then once you've overcome or mastered that small challenge, you move on to another one, and then your entire life can be a process of this. So that when you get towards the end of your life, you're this incredibly enriched person who's incredibly accomplished, because you never spent your life doing the same thing all the fucking time, and in an empty attempt to keep yourself distracted, which is it's a form of conditioning.
Yeah, like when you grow and reorient yourself, not only do you have to take into account what's in the world and what you don't understand about the world, you also have to take into account like who you are at this moment. Like without these moments of like looking at yourself. Sorry, can you re-say what you just said?
No,
Okay.
you completely lost the moment. Sorry,
Okay.
that's your bad.
Yeah.
So I would just say that look, that you can have a life that goes in either direction. One where you're constantly realizing who you are, and that in that constant realization, you're pushing the boundaries of what you can and can't do. So you may start at a place where you can't do certain things, but given enough time, you not only will you do those things, do the things that you thought you couldn't, you'll do more things than you could imagine. But if you're trapped in the same cycle of the same behaviors, doing the same things all the time, and all they do is condition you to be distracted, that you don't want to pay attention because you're just trying to get through the moment. You don't give a shit anymore. You want it to end. So think about the average workday. That entire time that you're working, you might be multitasking. You might be doing the job that you're expected to do, but your mind is constantly thinking about getting out of there and getting away from there and stuff like that. That is no way to live. That's conditioning you. And now you're making a negative association with the work environment. It's bad enough it's already a place that you may not want to be. And now you're compounding it further by having like a negative emotional kind of investment into it. So now you're creating a negative association with a form of behavior. It's Pavlov's dog. Right? So here's the real question. How do you want to condition yourself? Do you want to condition yourself so that your life becomes an adventure into personal transformation? Or do you want to be just a cog in some kind of a wheel in some kind of machine that operates to serve somebody else's interest? I mean, to a degree, you're going to have to do it anyway. But having said that, to be trapped by that, or the worst, to use that to create a negative association within you. And then now, anytime you're in a place, you're going to carry over some of that stuff. As soon as you have a trigger, you're going to react in a negative way. I'm like, liberation is not an idea that you're supposed to put in paper or stuff. It's something that comes with you realizing the entirety of who and what you're capable of becoming, right? It's about, ultimately, conditioning could be about transformation of the self into this highest expression of the self. Or conditioning could be this thing that you can use to like basically turn people into like flesh robots, right? Just they fucking run through the same cycle of behavior, do the same things, get up at the same time, eat the same things, physically do the same things, think the same thoughts. It's a trap. But only you can free yourself from the trap, right? Only you can do that. And it starts by paying attention, being here, being present, wherever you are. And then in the course of the life you live from day to day, you actively pursue methods of training, conditioning, that are intended to draw out the best of what you are, right? To realize them, to take that potential, which is something that is a possibility, and then make it a reality. It's going from what's possible to making it real. At least real enough, right? Right? So does that kind of make more sense? Did it answer any kind of lost questions you may have had?
Yeah. When I was speaking about how the use of the word highest expression, uh, it's interesting to me because the expression of yourself could be subjective, but it comes at the cost of the highest. You may get some of yourself out there, but compared to objective, uh, open mind, you have the ability to look at the stimuli and then choose. It's not subjective as much. To be able to express yourself, I think you at least have to be able to understand what's coming in, who you are,
absolutely.
and where it's going.
So you actively decide on the method of conditioning. The educational system doesn't do it, so you're not going to do that. So it requires you being in a constant state of learning. That means you having to take the time out of or finding the time in the course of a day to actively engage your mind, to think about the way you think, to think about the things you want in your life, and then how to go about doing that, and then implementation becomes everything. So then application of what you learn, and then that's what helps you to realize who you are. So here's the funny thing, it's a really slow process, it's a slow burn, but it produces this fantastic results. But we're socially conditioned that we want to be immediate gratification. You want it right now. The moment that you have the want for it, you want it right then and there. Again, impulsive, short-sighted, and self-interested, right? And again, in and of themselves, they're not necessarily a problem. They become a problem when they become the overarching kind of way that we do things. And I just described the majority of people, right? That they're driven by their impulses. They do things I don't know why I did that. I'm like, I can tell you why you don't know. You're not paying attention to the way you're thinking and what you're doing, because you're not present. You're wrapped up in just what you want, and you don't ever think beyond that. And you want all those needs met immediately. There have been many studies, and you know what they found? The common denominator amongst all people who are successful in every capacity that you could possibly imagine, in every material way you can imagine, relationships, occupation, self-image, all that stuff. You know what the single characteristic that could be identified as the reason for those material successes? Delay of gratification. You know what that is? Do the work first, and then you receive the reward. So the work becomes the reward. You work, and then the outcome, it'll eventually produce what you're looking for. But but most of us are driven just by, we want to be immediately gratified. That immediateness, or that need to be immediately gratified, is kind of, for most people, their undoing. Right? So just think long and hard on that. Question everything. Thank you for your time.